Hey everyone, welcome back to episode 6 of the Comeback Collective. I'm your host, Rebecca Lee Shaw, also known as The Real Rebecca on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, wherever. I'm so glad you're here. Let's dive into today's episode. We are talking about a lot on today's episode. We're going to talk about celibacy, why I don't follow men on Instagram, soul ties, and ending things with men that I have not been intimate with, and how easy that's gotten. Okay, we're just gonna dive right in. I have the list here on my phone. We're just gonna go down the list. So the idea of celibacy was presented to me recently by a girlfriend who has been celibate for a while now. And originally, when I did get divorced 5 years ago, I was like, I'm gonna wait for my husband. We all know how that went, right? I was in a relationship with someone. He ended up living a double life. It was wild, right? I found out that he had like multiple girlfriends. He had a girlfriend with a baby in another state, all of that kind of stuff. And this kind of also connects to the whole like soul tie situation. Part of the reason everyone's like, well, why didn't you leave him earlier? Because there were definitely red flags the entire time. And we can go into that. And I have a whole other episode on the Breakup Breakdown podcast about that relationship. But the whole reason that I was like so tied to this person was because we'd been intimate and I had a soul tie to this person that was so hard for me to break. Literally what broke that soul tie was finding out all of the lies, finding out that my relationship was not anything of truth. And luckily God had me covered there because that soul tie was instantly broken the second I found out about the other woman and the child and all of that. So anyway, back to celibacy. I have a girlfriend, know her from church. She's great. And she presented the idea of celibacy to me just through her own story, her own testimony. And I'm 100% one of those people where I've noticed that men like will not buy the cow if they're getting the milk for free. They won't. They're not going to do it. I have way too many friends. I know of way too many couples, even in the Christian community, who've been together for years. And I'm like, he's never going to propose to you because you have not given him anything to look forward to. Anyway, I have been celibate now for, I think, 8 months, and I am waiting for my husband. I know that sounds so cheesy and so corny, but I'm just at a point now where I am not giving my heart or my soul to some like middle medium man who doesn't deserve me. So that is kind of where I'm at with celibacy. I didn't really go into a lot of detail about it. I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. We all kind of know. I also have found that there is a culture now of like younger adult Christians who like are saving themselves or kind of like re-saving themselves for marriage. And it is becoming a little more trendy, a little bit more popular. And I'm kind of like, well, if that's not something a man is into, then I guess next. Swipe. Do we swipe left? Do we swipe right? I have no idea. Okay. Subject number 2, I do not follow men on Instagram. I follow my guy friends on Instagram, or, you know, I've had guy friends who like maybe kind of turn into a crush for a little bit and then I just kind of like move on past that. But what I'm talking is like a guy and I are talking, maybe we've been like hanging out for a couple weeks. I'm not going to follow them on social media. I'm at a point now where if a man asks me for my socials, I'm like, oh, sorry, that's private. Not being like, oh, it's on private, because I'm not trying to be not truthful, but I'm like, nope, I'm not sharing that with you. If you want to do a deep dive and you can find me on the internet, then good for you, go for it. But I'm not going to be sharing my socials with you. And my favorite thing for sure is when, you know, I will stop talking to a guy and I don't have to do the whole like follow, unfollow, refollow, block, mute, whatever. And they continue to follow me and I like see them in my story views. I'm like, hey, how's the view from over there? How's the view from the outside of the club? So anyway, I do go into a little bit more detail on a social media post that I did recently about the psychology behind not following someone on Instagram or TikTok or whatever. And part of it is that we were not designed to see someone's everyday life. We're not designed to see someone's coffee order or what they're doing at the gym. Like, we're not supposed to be knowing that much about someone we just met right off the bat. So one of the ways that I kind of guard my heart, guard myself, is by not following men on social media when we're kind of in that talking phase, because I don't want to know like who that other hand is in the photo. Like we're all seeing other people. I don't want to know about it. I don't need to know about it. And I just don't need to see your life that much. Something else that I recently started doing is I don't even save like a guy's phone number. Like if I met them on Hinge and they asked for my number and I'm like, okay, sure, maybe like we'll text a little bit. I don't even like save their numbers to my phone, which is hilarious. I'm like, I think I know who I'm talking to. And then I'm just at the point now where I'm like, you guys have seen some of my Hinge posts. I'm basically on dating apps just for like the giggles behind it, because some of the things that these men say is so outlandish, and I'm basically just on there for science and kind of a learning experiment, and just kind of realizing like the habits and the trends that all of these men have that I like want to stay away from. But I also want to be a little bit more cultured and be able to like tell you guys kind of like the research I found in the field. So right now I am on Hinge, basically just trying to like figure out like why men on dating apps are the way that they are. And yeah. So stay tuned on TikTok, Instagram. I might do maybe a YouTube about it, but I was like debating about putting together like a PowerPoint presentation. Like this was my prompt and these were all of the responses, because yeah, it's getting comical out there. So we are moving on to soul ties. So I touched briefly on that back when I was talking about celibacy. So when you are intimate with someone, you are like binding your soul to them, which is so funny because the entire time I was with my ex-boyfriend, I felt like I was like, his soul is still tied to all of his exes. That's because they weren't exes. But anyway, long story short. So when you have been intimate with someone, your soul is tied to that person. And yes, you can break soul ties. I talked about that earlier. But that's why it's so hard, and it's especially for women, like we get our feelings hurt so easily if we've like been intimate with someone, or even if we've just like maybe made out with them or whatever, and then they don't want to hang out with you anymore. You're like, oh, that hurts. And so now that I don't give any part of my body, maybe like, oh, oops, we're sitting in a crowded room and like my arm brushed up against you for 20 minutes, right? That's like the most amount of physical contact. I'm like, oh, we're talking in a loud area and you had to like lean on my arm. Like that's as much physical contact as you're getting. It's so easy now to just like not care if I don't hear from someone again, not care if they do something that I'm like, oh, that's a red flag, like you gotta go. Because I think in the past, it's like your soul is tied to this person, and so you're seeing all these red flags and you're making excuses for it, and it's like if your soul wasn't tied to them, you wouldn't care. You wouldn't care. I've had female friendships where like suddenly the red flags just start flying, and I am just able to like peace out and never talk to them again, have no feelings, like say sayonara, wish you luck. And it's because I'm not intimate with them. I love them. I love all my friends. I love all my girlfriends, but it's like I was never intimate with them. So it's really easy to just cut and move on and see you later. So we need to start doing the same thing with men. We're not giving them any ounce of us to like be sad over. No. Save it for your husband. I'm Christian, grew up in a youth group that was like, you know, you can't wear white at your wedding if you have sex before you're married. And so that was kind of the like legalistic rules that I grew up with, was just like, do not have sex before you're married. And it's like no one ever went into like the psychological reasons behind it, because had I been presented with like the psychology and just like the mental, physical, emotional toll that takes on someone, I would have been like, oh, okay, this all makes sense. But again, legalism in Christianity is just like, oh, God frowns upon it, oh, the Bible, oh, this, oh, that, you can't wear white to your wedding, like all of these like legalistic reasons. There's a reason that most people just are like, I don't care. Okay, and then the last thing I mentioned at the beginning was just ending things with men when you haven't been intimate with them versus when you have been. So, you know, I've hung out with a handful of guys after I caught my ex-boyfriend living a double life or whatever. Did take a pretty good break because I just was busy. My grandmother died, I moved, you know, all that stuff. And it's really been interesting because it's just so easy. It's just so easy to like not care for their excuses. You know, men tend to use like their family as an excuse, or like their work as an excuse when they want to like slowly stop talking to you, as opposed to just being like, hey, look, I really enjoyed our time together, but like this just isn't working for me. I don't think that, you know, I'm what you're looking for. You're not what I'm looking for. They like make up excuses of like, oh, I can't really text, I'm at work. You were texting me the last 3 weeks at work. What's the sudden change? Or when I love it when guys start pulling in like their family members, like, oh, my aunt is sick, or my grandma is sick, or my uncle is sick. I'm like, just say you don't want to hang out. Like, stop making excuses. You're a grown-ass man. You're a grown-ass man. Unless, I mean, obviously, like if I'm like, my grandpa, well, yeah, we all know I live and like breathe for my grandfather. So anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. Don't be intimate. It'll be easier to just say sayonara and move on. Okay, this was kind of a quick episode. I'm getting ready to go to a country music festival, but I wanted to get an episode out for you guys on Sunday and be consistent and be there for you guys. So let me know in the comments something that you want me to talk about in the next episode, or I guess actually in 2 episodes, because next week we are having another guest, which I'm really, really excited about. She has an amazing comeback story. You're gonna find the way that we're tied together really interesting. So we're gonna talk about art, like how I know her and our connection. So glad that you guys are here. Thank you so much. Be sure to like, subscribe, save, do all the things. The Comeback Collective is now on TikTok. So we're on TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, Spotify, and you can always find me on all socials as _real Rebecca, spelled Rebekah, like the Bible. Okay, I love you guys. Bye.